All right, everybody, this is what happens when we try a new system. It becomes more challenging. The show hasn't officially started right now, but the only way I can do this is to kind of start the Zoom and then start the YouTube, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. So that's what I'm trying to do right now to try to figure out, all right, there it is. It shows itself. Now all I have to do is figure out how in the hell to get to it. So live now, I'm gonna go to it, and there we go. Okay, good. So now all I have to do.
Hey, D-Bag.
So this is good. Now all I have to do is hit this link and babooey. There we are. Good. So that's up on YouTube now. And I'm relearning this whole thing. Hey, D-Bag, good to see you, buddy. I guess if somebody wants to put the link for the for Zoom in the Moohead Radio, I don't know that I can do that right now because I got too many things cooking at one time. So
it never allows me to post the link in there. It just doesn't show up.
Brian, you have the link and can copy and paste it, correct?
Yeah, let me.
Yeah, that might be the most helpful way of doing it because I don't think I can exit here.
You're talking about copying and pasting it on Twitter or in YouTube?
In YouTube in the chat room.
Okay, because that has never worked for me.
All right, we're going to promote Rick to being a panelist. Here comes Mr. Bill's dog. Okay, hopefully he'll jump in here. Well, I thought I'd done that. I'm going to try it again. He'll be joining the webinar as a panelist, and there he is. And we can unmute him. And you're going to have to get your video working, Rick, and apologize to the audience, but we are reacclimating to a new system just in case, because this last couple of shows, we've been running into more people wanting to be panelists and co-hosts on the program than what StreamYard will deliver. And so we're utilizing Zoom just in case that happens. I recognize a lot of people are thinking about other things other than Moohead Radio. But at the same time, something that we are discovering also is that people aren't working. And if they are, they're working from home and they're suddenly able to show up here for the beginning of the program. And there's more of an ability for some people who are not working just to do something because we can't do anything because of the damn virus. So if you want to jump in, hopefully we are now putting that up in the YouTube chat room, the link to this. And I wish I had the link in front of me, but unfortunately, well, I do. It's true. Okay. Let's see if I can do this now too.
Schnitzengruben?
Yeah, but Schnitzengruben. All right. So yeah, here we go.
I'm not from Havana.
Bam. Okay. So I just threw that up there. All right. I copied and pasted it right in there. So anybody who wants to be, if you're watching on YouTube, if you want to be on the program, this is the way to do it. I just put it in. I'll put it in again for you. And go ahead, Rox. I'll put it in. Forget it. And we'll just move on from there. It's 6 o'clock and time to rock and welcome to Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, how's everybody doing in their neck of the woods, Rick?
Oh, numbers keep climbing up here, but we're still holding ground. We're still above ground. It's always a good thing. Got a chance to talk to some of my cousins and my last aunt today, and everybody's holding up pretty good.
Yeah, you know, it was a shame because I lost all of my aunts in the great raid virus of forget it. I mean, there's one person who responded on the panel, and Rox is just sitting there looking dim-witted who didn't get it. Okay, raid.
I can't get to the show on YouTube for whatever reason. Now I remember I always had this problem.
Really?
Yeah.
Can somebody just let me go in and see if I can and get the link for you because I have it right here. For goodness sakes, that's interesting. Maybe
Yeah,
it
you can
doesn't.
put it in. You can put it in the chat in Zoom, and I'll click on it from there.
Yeah,
If
that's
I
what I was
can.
gonna do if I remember where in the hell that is.
The screen I've got says we've got 5 participants, but yet I only see 4 squares.
This is the Hollywood Squares version of the game.
Yes.
All right, I just sent it
Thank
to
you.
all the panelists. There it is. You got it?
I got it.
Not that anybody really wants to be watching the program right now. We are, here comes Hammer Time as well into the program. Hey, these times call for drastic action and, you know.
Hematos.
And I am doing this really just to promote more people. If you're bored stiff like we are, and you're just not doing anything all day, hey, it's an opportunity to kind of get together, and it's like a gathering spot. Moohead Radio becomes more than just a sports talk program. It becomes really a place where we can just sit and bitch and piss and moan. And that's really the way the show is intended all along. And Stephen now is jumping in, and we'll promote him to panelist as well. Hey, I'm getting the hang of this again. This is kind of good.
Woo-hoo!
It's nice that my old feeble mind can retain that much, you know?
You'll have this down by 7 o'clock for sure.
I know. So,
Friday,
you know,
we'll go through this all over again.
so if you're watching the program, you'll see that it's active speaker mode. Whoever's speaking will come up. So Hammer, say hi.
Hi, everybody.
And how are things in Columbus area?
The traffic is really nice. It's
Great.
it's,
Nothing quite like a self-serving answer. Way to go.
for those of
I
us
don't have to
that are
wait in
still
lines
working-
anywhere.
Yeah, for those of us that are still working, it's you know, we're at the epicenter for Ohio, so it's kind of, you know, we get all the things, and pretty much everything's closed except for grocery stores, carryouts, and you know, gas stations,
Right.
hardware stores, stuff like that. But I mean, just like everywhere else, right now, you know, they've talked. The big news was they're going to take the convention center, and they're going to use that as a potential overflow for non-emergency cases if they need to move people there. That was a big news. And the other big news in Ohio was that they have extended the school being out till May 1st, which essentially kind of kills everything in the spring as far as sports are concerned. So.
Yeah, there ain't going to be a lot of that going on. Steven, finally back on the program. I'm trying to open this thing up. That's why we went back to Zoom. How's everything in Texas, buddy?
You know, just same old. You know, unemployment rate's probably going to hit 50% in a couple of months. But, you know, other than that, we're doing all right.
50%. What is it now?
Well, you know, we got to do our social distance and 6 feet apart. But, you know, the funny thing about this whole spreading of the virus crap that I've been hearing, they're like, oh, well, you got to stay at home so that, you know, we don't want you to spread the virus around. But notice all the people who are saying this are all millionaires. Like the NFL came out with that ad. It's like, hi, I'm Ben Roethlisberger. Hi, I'm Brett Favre. We're sitting at home playing with our kids. Well, what do you expect when you got $30 million in the bank? I think you could probably sit at your house for about another 5 years and live a frugal lifestyle. But most of us, Joes, live paycheck to paycheck, whether you're self-employed, private sector, or whatever. And literally, you don't have that same luxury, you know, to sit at your house.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that we're being very, 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 very conservative. And that means that, you know, we walk the dog 3 times a day. And if we have an absolute necessity, we go out and get, whether it's medication or, you know, there are only a few things. I mean, because we've got a lot of food, but if there's some food need that comes up, if walking the dog or condoms, those 3 things.
Facts.
Yeah. No.
That's the of life. You nailed it. Yeah, you know.
No, I mean, but everybody
I'm
has
actually
their own...
now, Mark. I'm actually surprised you didn't put one of those pay dispensers up in the bathroom.
Yeah, it's true. I could have actually raised revenue along with something else. I mean, when you're selling condoms, you can raise consciousness too. So you can raise three things all. So, with that said, I can ask Rox this: how are things in Oklahoma?
I'm not real clear on how things are in Oklahoma. From what I hear, everybody's just kind of staying indoors. They've shut restaurants down, except for takeout only. A lot of people are working from home that have never worked from home. So yeah, it's harsh times. I know my friend who works for the public library, she was not working. She's going back to work now because they have 3D printers, and she's going to be printing masks for medical facilities.
Yeah, and Brian, how are things in Arizona?
Fairly normal, but I just got a text from my mom. She wanted me to watch the news. Apparently, Doug Ducey, our governor, is going to be closing things tomorrow at 5 p.m. So I'll have to check that out after the show.
Yeah, I mean, this is happening all over, these lockdowns, and so that everyone knows, I'm utilizing Zoom today only because we have a limitation of 6 co-hosts and panelists on StreamYard, and I'm trying to get Gage over at StreamYard, the CEO over there, to really consider jumping that level up, because we've got people who are sitting around all day, and I think people are trying to find ways to get more involved, because every day that goes by and every week that goes by with this, there's more being taken away. Their indoor exercise gym fitness centers have been taken away from them. The ability to just go to the store if you want to go to the store has been taken away from them. And people are turning to online and to movie watching and things that are generally inactive. I know that I try to do mat exercises, but Matt got pissed off at me because it required him to get in all kinds of weird positions, so he didn't like it. And then the swimming pool is a great thing to have, a hot tub and a pool, but how much you end up looking like a prune. I mean, look at my fucking fingers. I mean, you can't stay in a pool. I am ambidextrous, but I am not amphibious.
And you never know when you're going to get another visit from Elvis.
Facts.
I want to hear more about
his
15-foot
alligator.
Me and Matt, we go back a long time. No,
right? That's what you're saying,
right? Here's the stupid comment of the day. I love to start out programs with the dumb ass comments of the day. Red Bull Racing, okay, this goes into motorsports, Formula One specifically. Helmut Marko, who is a name in the sport. I'm not into Formula One, but I know Bronk out in England, and I hope he's doing well. I'm sure he would know something about Formula One. I really don't. But here's what he is requesting. He's part of the management team for the Red Bull Motorsport, right? He suggested that his team's Formula One drivers and juniors should come together for a camp to be intentionally infected with the coronavirus. I know, that's exactly how I responded too. Get this. They are all strong young men in good health, Marko said. That way, they would be prepared whenever the action starts. Needless to say, the idea was abandoned before it was even considered. 8 races of the Formula One season have already been canceled, and Marko is putting the interest of him being engaged in the sport over the health of the people who are participating in it. Nothing new in the world of sports. That has to be the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. Let's intentionally infect people. And this gets me going on another thing. Brian, you sent me a link, and I try not to watch what you send me.
Most of them go to Pornhub. Is that where we're going with this?
Yeah, it's Ron Jeremy again. God, how old
Rocks,
is this
avert
thing?
your eyes.
I know. But look, Brian, I love you to death. You know that. But politically, we're just, why in the hell would Italy be pretending that they have more coronavirus cases than they actually do?
There are actually, if you had watched the video, they're supposedly getting more aid money because of their higher death toll rate.
Oh, I didn't even stay that long enough because the whole premise of it was so conspiratorial and ridiculous that people will believe anything nowadays. But
The guy that's in charge of the infectious disease for the country of Italy is the one that fucking said it. And to the Guardian of all places.
Well, I mean, and that guy calling himself Ron Reagan that you sent me. I mean, I don't believe anybody who calls themselves Ron Reagan. All right.
And Mr. Roulette, isn't it a coincidence that if you look at the outbreak numbers, most of it's either in Europe or the United States? Like, why is it anywhere else around the world the numbers aren't as high?
Well, they are. I mean, obviously, China's gone through hell. South Korea's gone through hell. And there are, I mean, I think this will fill in over wider areas. Spain is moving up now. So it is spreading. I mean, it's not like this is just kind of in pockets. It's in pockets now only because, well, the thing that I wanted to say first of all was getting the country back up and running by Easter, which was our fearless orange-headed leader's proclamation. Can we admit now, Brian, that he was wrong?
Well, but at some point,
Checkmate.
if we don't have okay, but if we don't have commerce, we don't have an economy. If we don't have an economy, we're not going to have a country.
Nobody's questioning that, but I'm saying he was wrong, correct?
It was a short-term goal. Let's see where we are at Easter. Let's try and get things restarted so that we actually have people working again and generating incomes so that they don't
Why do
have
you go to
rely
such
on the
length to
fucking...
protect him? He's human. He can be wrong. Hey, if I were a Republican, which God only knows I'm not, but if I were, I would say, well, he was just being optimistic. That's what the Fox network's saying to spin it. He was being optimistic. And I said, okay, but the thing is that in his mind,
and don't pretend that fucking Obama never was wrong about a goddamn thing.
We're not talking about Obama. Obama wasn't around during coronavirus. No, we're just saying. I'm just pointing out he can be wrong.
But there was an outbreak of what was that H1N1 for Obama?
Was that swine flu?
I think that's a chest.
He waited until fucking there were 10,000 people dead before he lifted a finger to do any goddamn thing besides pick his nose.
Yeah, but 4 weeks ago, the right side news media, aka Fox News, and everybody on it was declaring it was a plot by the Democrats to hurt the president. Well, now everybody's kind of changed their mind and realized,
yeah, definitely.
No, we need to get our act together, and everybody needs to work with each other and quit making it a political football.
And I agree. I want to say something else to be fair and balanced. CNN is just a crock. I mean, I've been going back and forth, and it is just all propaganda. I mean, I don't really care. My dislike of Donald Trump has nothing to do with the coronavirus, and we want to move forward, and we want this arguing and bickering to stop, and we just want to get supplies into the hands of people who need them. And it is a scary thing when people have to make decisions on life and death predicated on strictly their age, their prior histories, pre-existing conditions, when we don't have what we need. So anything that can bring, and I'm not talking about bringing in drugs that don't mean anything right now. I mean the basics. We need ventilators, we need masks. There's things, and We can't be having governors arguing with the White House arguing with the governors, preferential treatment, or I just want you to be appreciative. It's like we're all in this together. This is a scary time in history. And I really
Mr.
hope
Floyd,
that we get over all.
Can I ask you a question? When they first
Yeah.
talked about the coronavirus in China, most Americans sort of passed this off. Oh, give a shout out to Maria Gonzalez, by the way. She just said hi to me. Most Americans said, oh, better them than me. At least it's not over here. But you got to remember, some people are flying all around the world internationally. So you got to figure, if Americans or other nationalities that live here are flying to China and coming back, you got to figure they were going to bring this virus back. Right?
Right.
And when the cruise ship came in from San Antonio, they said, oh yeah, you know, this boat here was you know, quarantined, but don't worry, they're cleared. And then when they got here, then on the news said, oh well, you don't show symptoms for 2 weeks, so we don't know if they had it or not.
Yeah, it's
And the people that were quarantined on the cruise ship off the coast of Japan were sent to some air base in the middle of, I think it was either Nebraska or Oklahoma.
I mean, do you find that it's really incredible that the president of the United States is only granting interviews to Fox News? I mean, there are probably half of America who won't watch Fox and half of America that won't watch CNN. And don't you think it would be smart to get information out to everybody? I mean, this is becoming so partisan.
That's what he uses Twitter for.
Yeah, well.
But half of Twitter is calling people names, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, it's all partisan.
But Mr. Muhead, you know CNN and Fox News are twin brothers.
People names thing on Twitter, then I could maybe even listen to it. But you know, I can't waste my time listening to those things when half the time it's talking about, you know, this, that, or how great we are, how great things have been handled. When, you know. And neither side is right in this. When they try to put this thing through Congress, both sides started putting their own little pork pieces into it. And it was just, that's the part that's very frustrating. It's like, can you just stop with the politics and take care of the country? I'm sorry, Stephen, go ahead.
Jim Hammer, I just wanted to respond to you. You do realize CNN and Fox News all they are is just talking points for the elite. You know that, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously it's designed to go on both sides of the fence just to keep people arguing instead of getting united. And it's really a shame. And to point to what Brian was saying regarding the economy, now Macy's is furloughing a majority of its 125,000 employees because of this pandemic. It's taken a huge toll on its business. Macy's also owns Bloomingdale's and Blue Mercury. You know, they closed all of its 775 stores in the United States earlier this month to slow the virus from spreading in crowded areas. I mean, the mall here is shut down. Macy's is in the mall. Macy's was already having problems prior to this.
Yes.
It had lost a majority of its sales because of the brick and mortar closures. It's implementing other changes to try to bolster its bottom line, but it's not going to make it. And I think you're going to see a lot of empty spaces by the time this thing gets done. I think you're going to see a hell of a lot more businesses that don't come back.
Yeah, that's the scary part of all this.
Mr. Muhead, you do realize when they talk about essential employees, this virus has no discrimination. It's not going to say, oh, well, we're just going to give the virus to the people, or we're not going to give the virus to the hospital workers, nurses, or grocery store workers, which they're doing a good job, by the way. I'm not questioning that, but, oh, we're just going to the virus is just not going to get them. So the rest of you non-essential employees that sit at the house, we're really coming for you. And that's not even really what it's about. Like, there's more cases coming up every day, and this whole shutdown is not working. It's not.
Well, I mean, here's what the real race is. If you haven't been reading, the pharmaceutical companies getting in line, make sure they're getting publicity so that their stock values will either go up or remain solid. Pharmaceutical giant Johnson & Johnson, they are the people who make the toxic talcum powder and the changed formula baby oil that makes half of the population break out on their skin. They're going to begin human clinical trials of a vaccine by September, with a goal of the first batches being made available for emergency use by early next year. And that's what's coming out of Johnson & Johnson. However, there are loads of other companies racing Johnson & Johnson.
Lilly is probably the biggest.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them.
Bristol Myers Squibb.
Yeah, I mean, Pfizer is partnering with BioNTech. There's a bunch of companies, and Moderna, Novavax, and this may not mean anything to Pfizer's big company that we'd be familiar with. And of course, shares of Moderna, Novavax, and BioNTech have all soared this year. That's where people are putting some of their money down, is in the biotech area. But the actual big pharma area, Pfizer, for example, is down 20% in its stock. Nobody knows whether any of these drugs are real, whether they will work or whatever. I would say right now it's nothing more than the phase of marketing, and which is another thing that we really don't need right now. We need people working at this to make sure that something gets done. And then go ahead.
Muhead, based on what you're saying, they're doing these clinical tests in September and all this. It sounds like we won't even look if this is even going to work or not. So this looks like it's going on to next year, the way that this is sounding.
Yeah, it's Bronk has jumped in. How you doing, Bronk? Well, you got to unmute.
Hey, Mr. Muhead, if this disrupts the elections, then will Trump just win by default based on what it currently is now? Or are they still going to have an elections? I mean, it's going to be kind of awkward having one.
Actually, they try to put some things in to pretty much force a by mail election, by trying to make it that way. I know there's a lot of issues with whether or not it seems like it's something that can be easily manipulated.
Yes.
So that's, wow, man, it's dark.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get your mail. Sorry. Oh shit, did you get your mail in? Oh,
hey, by the way, speaking, I do work for the post office, and what they've actually done is on a local front, the clerks that are working the window, they've created the social distancing line where they put lines on the floor for people to stand about 6 feet apart. But actually, over the weekend, they had the offices go out and buy clear shower curtains, which they're using like those command things that they can stick on the ceiling. Mm-hmm. And basically, they have a clear shower curtain between the customers and the employees. Employees are wearing masks and gloves, and they have to put the things on the table and then step back, and then they have the shower curtain. But there's still like a little gap there where the credit card machine is. But that's what I walked into today when I went into the office, and I'm just like, oh, well, this is cute, So we used to take walk-ins for passports. They're only taking them by appointment because they used to have a bunch of people would sit around, kind of like the BMV. So that's changed. They've gone to the point where everything is they're making sure people stay away from each other, but they're starting to find people that have been getting sick. I mean, it started, there was a few people in Washington State. There's a couple people, there's one person down in Cincinnati area. They haven't said who or where or how many other people. But the one thing about this whole thing, and they've said this, it affects people differently. Some people have horrible symptoms.
Some people have no symptoms.
Ventilators, survive and don't survive. Other people have gotten through this and lived through it with just basically like 2 weeks of the flu, as far as they know. And those cases are the ones that aren't getting reported because these people just think they're like, oh, I just don't feel that good. I had an upset stomach, whatever the case is.
Hey, Bronk, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'll talk about the mail here because that's an interesting topic on my street. Things are very different locally here in England. We privatized our mail system a couple years ago. It used to be, publicly owned. And on my street, we've only had two mail deliveries of the past 3 weeks.
Oh
And
my God.
each day I got like 6, 7 pieces of mail.
Mm.
So they are that understaffed, either because they were understaffed begin this before the coronavirus started hitting, but now they're so understaffed that we are not getting our post, and that's causing a problem if you're in the national health system for various appointments and things. It's all done by letter. It's not done by email. So me and my neighbor across the street, his wife has been having, ongoing treatments, and we need those letters to show when we go to the hospital that,
Mm.
we're here for this thing, because there'll be a barcode on it, and we're not getting this stuff in time.
Wow.
And that's obviously nobody's fault. That's just what they've decided to do.
For
So
those
there
who are
are,
not regular viewers of the program, Bronk is in England, so that's why he's talking about NHS.
yeah, I mean, I'll tell you exactly where I am. I'm 70 miles northeast of London. It takes about an hour and 40 minutes on the train on a good day. And I'm right on the seacoast. Now, obviously, if you're on the seacoast in England, it's just like being on the seacoast wherever you are in America. People have second homes here, or they have what we call caravans, which are basically trailers, and what's happening is that people are escaping London, getting away from the coronavirus
Yep.
hotspot that's there, and coming down fucking here and eating our food, going into our shops and causing us a problem, us using local services. So that's an issue. That's been an issue now for a few weeks. Um,
Yeah,
Personally,
we're seeing the same thing out of New York. And the statistic, and I was talking to a friend in New York, 70% of the people who live in Manhattan, all right, and these are people who are obviously pretty well off
pretty fucking
people.
wealthy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to live in Manhattan these days is, astronomic price wise, rent wise, or
Exactly.
ownership wise.
My previous CEO bought an apartment in Manhattan, near Central Park, for 30 million 5 years ago.
It's crazy. Yeah, it
And
is.
it's his second home, and that's his business home.
Mm.
But 70% of Manhattan has gotten the hell out of there and has gone to their
Wherever.
their country homes, if you will, which are generally
Exactly.
upstate or in the Hamptons, and they're moving this stuff around the country. So I mean,
Correct.
it is
They're coming
a
down
massive
towards you.
problem.
Isn't that like gentrification, basically?
Well, yeah, well, it's worse than that. I mean, yeah, it's just like, yeah, people, you see New York license plates, and it's like you go running away as fast as you can.
That's what they're doing, Mr. Mued, in Houston. They're tearing down all the old project areas, and they're building businesses, and they're pushing all the poor people or the homeless out. So now we see them in our areas now, the surrounding areas, the surrounding parts of the county.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, it's the bottom of the hour now, so we're going to take the last half of the show and actually talk about sports. But I do like to get a view of what's going on. No, I mean, the thing that's great about a program like this really is that we have a wide range of people who are from different states and different countries, even in this instance. And we can get so much of what we see on television, we can't trust anymore. I'd rather listen to people who are living through this. And, we all hear how bad things are in England, and I'm sure they are. And things
It depends. You can ask me specific questions and I'll give you specific answers, but I don't want to add to any of the misinformation out there if I don't really know something for a fact. I mean, I've been in the NHS system for 2 months now for a big skin cancer problem that I had on my head that got taken care of, and also because I got spinal cord issues. So I was just in the Queen's Romford, which is outside of central London, on the 20th of March for an MRI. And when I was there, normally that radiology area is absolutely ram-packed. They'll have like 60 chairs in the waiting area. There were 4 people waiting there. and it was me and 3 other people. We were all there because we had fucking issues that needed sorting, and they decided to not have us use the regular MRI, but go all the way, traipse all the way through the hospital, and go to an outside trailer MRI that was all the way in the like oncology area, which was fine. So I come back in from the MRI from this trailer, walk into that entrance to the hospital, and I get like the 3rd degree from a security nurse that says, "Where have you come from? Where are you?" I says, "Well, I was just in the MRI trailer," because I was in there for an hour. So I was immediately marched over to wash my hands, and then I had to go all the way back through the hospital to get out of the building. It's a big like factory. So essentially, I've decided to self-isolate since I was in that hospital because I was everywhere. I meant to have a cage on my neck put in, to stop my spinal cord from getting ripped to shreds.
Right.
And that surgery's been canceled twice now. It was scheduled
Ugh.
middle of March, and then it was scheduled on the 8th of April. And then while I was having my MRI, a person from the neurology surgeon section was ringing my house phone to tell me that my surgery was canceled. I didn't hear the message until 2 days later, because who the fuck rings your fucking house phone? So anyway,
As a house.
so yeah, so that's my story. So we have my wife here who's like slightly younger than me, and we also have her very elderly mother who's in the prime risk center for getting coronavirus. So I basically have been like staying in the house and not
How
going
old are you,
out.
Bronk?
I'm going to be 60.
All right, so you're like 2 years younger, 3 years younger than I am.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
Older
plan.
than I
The
am,
plan
that's
is to be
the
60. Whether I make it,
You
who
got to
knows?
have goals.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the plan.
exactly. But I'll tell you, you don't want to be thrust out there needlessly.
No, because
You know-
I travel because I didn't, don't drive here very much over here. I don't want my wife to drive. So I came into that hospital in London on public transport as well. So not only did I had the cross country train journey into London, but I had a local train journey into London to the hospital, then a local bus, and then I walked all the way through every freaking ward on the ground floor of that hospital, and then came out, ate food there because that was like the only place that had food that was open. It was absolutely really good food, by the way. And then got a bus back, got the train back. So I'm thinking like in that like 5 hours that I've done that, I was like handled by the MRI guy, been all through his hospital, all on the bus, all been on 2 different trains. I've been exposed to coronavirus just on that journey. So I decided just to like not go out and see whether anything happened. Now, thankfully, I don't think anything has. I've had like a little slight thing, but I wouldn't have thought it was coronavirus. So
Yeah, go ahead,
that's what's
Stephen.
going on here.
Is Mr. Hammer still on?
Yeah.
Okay, he works at the post office. Do you know if the DMV is closed? Because my license is due on June the 26th.
The DMV is closed in
So-
Ohio. I don't know
Okay,
if
so-
it is in Texas.
If it's
But one thing they did say was they weren't ticketing vehicles that were like,
Expired.
expired, and they weren't giving people tickets if your license expired because you can't go in to get it. So
yeah, so like you can't
I
go
would go
online.
even I'd go on their website. One thing you were talking about, Bronk, and you brought this up about the fact that you were really getting mail only a couple times here and
Yep.
there. We actually have a contingency. We had a couple of telecons 2 and 3 weeks ago, and we have one every day talking about just the same thing.
Well, I think it's a good idea, but obviously it's going to inconvenience people. But as
they've
long as they
actually-
get it, like,
they
carry
talk
on. Sorry.
what's going to happen if we're down to 60% of our workforce or 40% of our workforce because
Yeah.
people aren't able to be there. So that's one of the things they're doing is rotating days of the week of when we
Mhm.
deliver certain routes, and the even number routes will be one day a week and the
Yep.
odd number routes the next day, and
Wow.
or something like that. So
All right, let me move this while Steven's eating. I want to go over something as far as the Cleveland Browns are concerned.
No, I got more to say if you want to hear it. I mean, the other thing that's shut down here is the the dump, or what we call the civic amenities site. Now that's the place where you take all of your recycling and all your trash. That's been shut. But what they're trying to do is they're still keeping the regular rubbish service going, but you can't put out extra bags. So it's like a catch-22. You can't go to the dump to dump your extra shit, and you can't put out extra bags. So you're forced to really economize and really try to recycle stuff. But what's happened is that all these pricks that went out and overbought food that was fresh, and now weren't able to store it or weren't able to eat it, or just were fucking idiots and just bought too much. They're trying to throw out all of this fresh food and shit.
Perishable.
And it's just not going down very well. So that's the other thing that's at the local level. Now getting back to my rant about people coming down here from out of the area, the reason why it's a problem is that my town, Clacton, is probably about the size of Ashland, Ohio. Now, if you add an extra like couple thousand people to Ashland, that would be a noticeable difference. But the thing is that we have a very basic hospital that doesn't have an emergency room and doesn't have an ICU, and it doesn't have other things. It's got a minor injuries unit, which is what you can walk in if you break your arm, they'll fix it. And it's got a place to get your blood tested. It's got a little pharmacy and stuff like that. But if these fuckers get sick, they will have to get carted all the way over to Colchester, which is 15 English miles away, which takes at least a half hour to 45 minutes to drive on a good day, over to our general hospital, which is the place that has the ICUs. And to give an update there, they've already had 6 people die of coronavirus. So this hospital is already overstretched with people dropping dead, because it's like in the center of our little cluster in North Essex. So, you go 15 miles inland, you get this town of Colchester, and it's in between London and Ipswich. And then Ipswich.
Now, I do want to switch over to a couple of sports subjects while we have the chance, and get away from the coronavirus thing. So the question I have for the panel is, which of the Browns do you think will die from coronavirus? No, I'm kidding.
Is it open to the front office too?
I'd be a little worried about Bernie.
I would say Drew Stanton.
Because
he's the oldest.
Here's the rumors that the Browns are still interested in trading for Washington left tackle Trent Williams. We've been hearing about this for some time now.
Oh, he's going to die of coronavirus, definitely.
Now,
or he'll get staph, or
they'll make the deal. Yeah.
Let me ask the panel. Let me ask the panel this: with everything that is changing the draft, I mean, we are an analytics-based front office now, and everything is not going to go down like it went down previously as far as being able to watch, view players, to get raw, tangible numbers. The draft is going to go down without all of that shit happening. Now, so how do you analyze? There are a lot of experts are saying that there's going to be more guesswork done in this draft than any other in the history of the NFL, simply because it's going to be hard to get a hold of information. Would it make sense for the Cleveland Browns to trade uncertain draft picks when they have an analytics bunch in and no analytics really to base judgments off of, in exchange for a guy who I understand has had some health problems, but is a really good left tackle? We'll start this with Jim. What do you think about this? Does it make more sense now for this trade to happen in view of what's happening or not happening in the draft?
Where they're drafting, which is where is it, 9, 10, something like that, or whatever.
Number 10.
Yeah. There's going to be a player available there as far as an offensive lineman who's probably going to be able to step right in. They did pick up their right side tackle earlier. So I think that's probably where they're going to lay at. I mean, as far as the analytics on an offensive lineman versus whatever, they can look at the film or look at what the school puts out or whatever. But the other part is 40 times and reps and stuff like that. I mean, it's I don't think there's going to be a problem with that. There's absolutely no question in my mind that that's where they're going with it, and I think they want to try to do that. But certainly having somebody who's played and who has a track record is a nice thing. But they've tried that a couple times before and it doesn't always work. So
Yep.
Rick, I mean, do you think that there's more value in making a trade for a proven commodity than the guesswork that's going to go down as far as the draft?
well, once again, if you're trading somebody obviously thinks whatever they're getting is worth at least or more than what they're trading away. Unless it's somebody who's a problem child like an Antonio Brown or a Josh Gordon or something like that. So I don't know that they're going to be able to do that the way that they think they can. So
Rick, what do you think?
Well, my first question would be about Trent Williams' age. He's, I believe, 32. And he is, from my understanding, he was asking for a pretty good hefty sum of
That
of
$20
money.
million a year thing that originally came up ain't a happening. And I
Yeah.
think that the free agent market pretty well spelled that out.
So you've got the number 10 draft pick, the fear of the unknown. You've got Trent Williams, the fear of the known. So you decide what's going to be like the lesser of two evils. I'm just a little leery about Trent Williams. The fact he didn't play virtually the entire year. I take my chances on the younger player. You put a new staff into place to do just this. You're supposed to mold and train the young player into becoming a starter. Let's see if we've actually hired the right people to do this. Let's get one of those 3 or 4 stud offensive tackle prospects that's out there. See if we can pick one up at number 10 and let's get to work.
Here's one of the things that concerns me. I think it's kind of a done deal that we're trying to build this around Baker Mayfield to improve the protection so we can get an assessment on this young man for certain rather than having him scrambling for his life. And the thing that scares me about the number 10 pick and the history of the Browns drafting in general is that if you take the most important left tackle, the tackle position that is the most important from a quarterback's protection perspective, and cast it up in the wind when you have a chance to fill that breach in, I think it's already almost a damn certainty that the defense is going to blow big chunks this year. I mean, if you take a look at what we haven't been able to do, everything that we've done is to put together the best offensive line to control the line of scrimmage, to take the pressure off Baker, and to utilize OBJ and Landry and Njoku and now Hooper. And that seems to be the plan of attack. I don't know. Maybe I'm all messed up with this, but I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound. Bronk, what do you say? Do you go for the proven commodity or do you take a chance on the number 10 pick?
Well, I have a lot of problems with Trent Williams in the sense of all the issues that were mentioned and the fact that maybe there was a way that he could have come to some sort of reconciliation with the Redskins and played, so you wonder whether he would be obstinate if he came to Cleveland too. But I have a totally different, weird, bizarre idea that the Browns could do. Instead of going for Trent Williams or an offensive tackle at number 10, why don't we try to trade up and get Jeff Okudah, who would be a freaking lockdown cornerback as long as he doesn't get hurt. And then we could actually have a defense that would stop a passing game, because then you'd have Ward, you'd have Okuda, then you'd have Greedy Williams coming in, not have to play every play. And I think Okuda is going to be all pro as long as he doesn't get hurt for a long time. So I would look to trade up and get an all pro player out there, because there's going to be people drafting Toa. There are going to be people drafting Herbert. I mean, even the guy from Utah State might even get drafted in the top 10. Who knows? I think what this draft process about not being able to evaluate the players at the combine and stuff like that, the teams it hurts the most is the ones that have the football guys like Dorsey and people like that, because they're not around to view them. They're not around to interview them. Like, that guy's a player. Well, the analytics guys and their stats actually have the advantage now in evaluation that over the football guys, because the football guys can't fucking see or talk or do anything with these things. So maybe we might just actually luck out and have a better draft than other teams this year. I mean,
that's one way of looking at it for sure. Stephen,
have you ever heard that opinion before? I don't think you have, but I think we should trade up and get an all pro.
It's an interesting point of view. Stephen, would you go for more of a sure thing, or would you play it by the draft?
You know what, man? You guys are, I was thinking about this while y'all were talking about this. I'm the only person that's going to say this. I think you should trade down to maybe the 20th pick, because let's just be honest. This draft is going to be fully loaded. Quarterbacks, running backs, you're going to have offensive tackles, offensive linemen. This draft class is probably more stacked in this year alone and probably the last 3 or 4 years. So I would say trade down and try to get something out of that, maybe like an extra second rounder or something, and maybe go offensive lineman. Why not? Because Baker needs protection.
Okay, well, we've drafted offensive linemen, in the second round, and like Drew Forbes and Austin Corbett and all of that, and how's that worked out? So
well, every year
I'm just sitting here saying something different,
Cleveland.com actually had that same scenario, Stephen, about trading down out of that pick depending on what was available.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
This idea, that's totally something no one's talked about. So.
Let me ask you this, and we're skipping over sports here. I'm trying to get a little bit of this and a little bit of that. They're talking about the Major League Baseball schedule is just going to be totally blown to pieces, and you're going to be forced into an imbalanced schedule as far as who plays who, how many times. How would you approach this? I mean, and I know.
Well, I have a solution for that.
All right.
If you're playing a shortened schedule of fuck off, Brian. If you're playing a shortened schedule of like 70 games or 60 games, then you just play them against your division, and then the playoffs mean something. You play the 14 games against your other teams in your division, and certainly don't play interleague games. So you get rid of the interleague games. First of all,
I think we can all agree that Brian, I mean, what do you think? Do you think that this is, and I tend to feel the same way Bronk does, not that everyone's dead, but I do feel but I do believe that if you want a fairer assessment of divisional strength throughout an entire, well, if you want to call 60, 70 or whatever games entirety,
abbreviated season.
Yeah. What do you think, Brian? How would you go with an imbalanced schedule?
Well, basically, you'd have to play everybody that's in your respective league. American plays American and national plays national.
I like that.
So that you get the games in that really matter, and you don't piss around with this. Well, the Indians are going to be playing the Dodgers for 3 games, and
well, interleague is going to be out of the question. Yeah, I think that's going to get wiped out first. That's going to get wiped out first thing. The question is, I mean, if you're the Cleveland Indians and you got to go to Anaheim to play the Angels, for example, doesn't it make more sense just to be playing Minnesota and Detroit and Chicago?
Right.
as opposed to having to be all over the.
Well,
the
yeah,
place.
it would be heavily weighted for your divisional games, so especially because of the playoff structure and all of that. So
But I mean,
think they're
if
going to
you
limit the playoffs to.
even if it were heavily weighted, the problem is who do you play in the other 12 games or whatever, and that makes a huge difference because if you end up playing lame-o teams just by the luck of the
Exactly.
draw, that's going to give teams an advantage as opposed to playing one another. And I understand the Indians are not in the best division, and I think the Twins are probably the best team in the division, and the Indians will not come close to what they did last year. But doesn't it make more sense to have them just play one another and be done with it rather than some people having the misfortune of having to play a really good team, whereas other teams having the fortune of in their 12 games outside of their division playing pushovers?
All right, well, let's add on time scales. To play 70 games, you got to be playing in August. You got to be playing like the last week in July. So even if you play one game, one day a week from the end of July to the beginning of October, that's your 70 days right there. So you can easily, if you're in the 16 division, you play 14 games against your other 5 teams in that division. And there you go. And then you're also limiting travel for these players because this virus is not going away. It'll be reasonably dormant, then it'll spike up, and then it'll be dormant, and then it'll spike up again. So to have these teams traveling, a schedule that includes the entire American League or the entire National League is ridiculous from a virus point of view. So,
Rick, do you have an opinion, Rick?
Again, just keep it, American League versus American League and National versus National. Say 14 games between each of the teams in your division. So that would come out to 56 games. And then maybe 4 games random, again, within its own league, maybe at the locales close to each other to maybe cut down on some of the traveling in that. Yeah. Maybe at least once a week, possibly a doubleheader, so that in case of rainouts or something like that, you may still be able to squeeze in your 60.
By the way, another major event, Wimbledon, canceled, and that doesn't that shouldn't surprise anyone given the set of circumstances.
I have no opinion on this, Mr. Mued. And
go ahead, Stephen.
I'm just going to say this: it's obvious baseball is a dying sport. If you're still believing that you need 162 games for playoff season, so we already know that we don't need that many games. It's just ridiculous. So if you do this season right here would be an experiment as to later on in the future as to them possibly reducing the regular season. Because if it works at 70 games and you're looking at playing your division opponents, 14 games times 5 is 70. And I mean, really, you only need you don't even need but about 90 games, 80 games, if that, to determine playoffs. You don't need 162. So this would be a great experimentation. So even if next year they got rid of interleague or the following season they said, oh, we're not going to do interleague anymore and we'll shorten the season down to like 130. That's a win-win because anything's better than 162. You don't need 162 games. And this would be a great example to set that forefront to say, look, we did it 70 games and we still made it successful. So let's talk about shortening it. I'll go ahead and
Here's an odd story. Phil Mickelson says he's working on a potential showdown with Tiger Woods, not with golf clubs, but actually with swords. No, it is with golf clubs.
I'd pay money to see that.
Yeah. I'm not sure who I'd want to see win. That would be the problem with the swords. But because of the termination of sports and live sporting events, here's a situation where you could pick an empty venue, nobody to show up to it, and have Phil and Tiger make a bundle and have the networks bid for the only live sports event that's going to happen. I mean, I look at this rather cynically as self-promoting. I mean, does anybody on the panel see this any differently?
It's like Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs again. I mean, who gives a fuck? I don't want to see Phil
and Tiger again anyway, but I mean, I don't know. Is Hammer still with us?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, do you think this is just kind of shameful self-marketing on the part of two guys who realize their better days in golf are behind them?
They're all about names. It's people will pay to watch names do things, and that's kind of what it is. You know, one of the things that just came up. You know, I'm a big UFC fan, and that was one of the things they were just talking about was what are they going to do, because they have a card coming up here mid-April, and they've talked about, you know, doing it with no audience and all these other ideas of how they're going to do it, and it's you know, it's probably not going to happen right now, at least not the way that the card is set up to be. So I don't know. You know, they're saying one of the comments is that particularly in the case of fighters, which is a little different than two multi-millionaire golfers towards the back end of their career. You know, fighters, some of them don't make that much to show up or to even to win. And for them, it's taking care of their families and stuff. So I don't know. It's the thing is there's nothing on other than WrestleMania, you know, or whatever the heck that the Wednesday night stuff that they've been showing in front of.
Well, I mean, it's the vast barren wasteland. Before, you know, there's only 3 minutes left in the show. I want an opportunity. Rox, if there's anyone fast forwarding in the archive, time for Madonna Piranha. Let's go.
Let the body move to the music. Hey, hey, hey.
All right, more Piranha. More without the singing. We just want to see the Piranha now. No, you have to say something though, so we can see it. Full screen.
What do I say without singing?
Num. How about num num num?
Just do na.
All right. So I'd like to just make sure if people say, well, I'm going to fast forward to the end of the program. Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of groupies. Now we have a grouper.
You know what we need to end the program? We need a homily from Jerry Springer.
Jerry Springer homily. How would Jerry Springer
homily?
Okay, here we go. You know, looking at the last several weeks in the absence of sports, it makes me kind of wonder, is it that we are susceptible to the spread and the contagion of a virus, or is it our contagion to sports? This is a stretch. And our ability to live without sports is equally difficult to living our lives with the virus. Would it be a better world without the virus and without sports, or with the virus and with sports? These are the things that we need to question and ask ourselves every day. And say a prayer before you go to bed, hoping that the 47th WrestleMania will be shown live and in real time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
This
for the
just
record,
in,
Mr.
Rocky 38 now on the docket.
Oh, Mr. Bluehead, Vince McMahon is blaming the coronavirus on God losing a match to him in 2006 at Backlash. Just to let you know.
All right. Well, there's a lot of things still to be seen. I want to warn everybody, and this is not going crazy, goofy gaga, but statistically speaking, the ramp up is occurring. And if you can minimize leaving your homes to go needless places, please do it. Because at this point, I know what they're saying in Florida from a statistical perspective, it is beyond containment, all right? Which means that there's nothing now that can be done for it not to spread. Now we're just trying to determine how little we can get it to spread. We can't kill this in its tracks, but please be careful. And I know that it's difficult to sit around and not do the things you're used to doing, but please, if there's one message I could get out of this whole thing is please do not go out of your way out of, cabin fever to go out and do something foolish. You don't want to do that. Yeah. Stay with your families, stay indoors as much as you can. Do not let people into your house who you do not know, or have people who are bringing packages into your house. Keep your homestead clean. These are just real simple, common sense kinds of things, and hang in there. We're going to be here again on Friday, and we just are going to continue doing this. And I don't want, nobody wants our lives to be different than what they were, but we have to acknowledge it is different now. And you can make a big difference in this by not going back to the supermarket looking for goods over and over again. You should have been stocking up by now. And I don't mean hoarding. I mean stocking up so that you have the things that you need, so you don't have to go to a store and go, oh, shit, they didn't have what I was looking for. Don't be going into crowded places needlessly. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. Back again on Friday. Please be healthy and take care of yourselves. And until Friday, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.
Hey,
Bye.